This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.
Going into year 2, we understand a lot of those things necessary to be competitive and win games. Now it's how do you do it week in and week out.
As the Tigers travel to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama.
Touchdown, mighty Tigers! Oh!
Coach Kelly is coming up, but first, from inside the Capital One studio on the campus of LSU, here are your hosts, former Tiger Gordy Rush, and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Well, good Monday morning. Great to be back with you here. It's game week. LSU football getting set to get back out on the field after the bye week, and traditional bye week, which means that sets up a heavyweight match coming up in Tuscaloosa on Saturday evening, prime time. CBS SEC game, and it'll kick off just after 6:45. But Gordy Rush, we got a lot to get to today. Of course, leading everyone up to 12 noon. Coach Brian Kelly also will discuss what took place, the positives from the off week and going into game week preparation. But let's go back a little bit. We didn't get a chance to break down the Army matchup. LSU dominating that game, winning 62-0. I think before that game, we sat here that Monday before and we said, in a perfect world, LSU comes off to a quick start offensively, doesn't allow them to get any momentum, any confidence, and you're able to rest most of your number ones. And as it turned out, Jaden Daniels got to play the first half and put up Heisman-like numbers again. He was masterful, and LSU took care of business the way they were supposed to. I know when you look at that matchup and you say, what do you take from that? What do you glean from that moving forward now that you step back in against a top 10 Alabama team? But there were some things, and I know you talked about it on the broadcast. What did you like about what you saw in the 62-0 win over Army?
You know, first off, I think from a team aspect, you want to come back after an emotional rivalry like Auburn. It's always, regardless of what the records are, it's a very physical football game. Anytime you play Auburn, you want to be able to bounce back. It's a non-district, non-conference game. It's a game you're supposed to win, and LSU came up and played at a high level. First and foremost, I thought the business approach to that was right on spot. Secondly, for me, I thought the defense, Chris, continues to gain confidence, and Army was struggling on offense, right? But they'd put now a half against Missouri, a full game against Auburn, a full game against Army in this kind of new look four-man front with Perkins at the Sam Nickel position, the same cast of characters, the same personnel, and they continue to improve as a unit. And like you said, I thought Jade was just so efficient, 11 of 15, 279 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. They ran the football. They scored at ease. They got the job done.
Again, it was not a perfect game in the sense that LSU did not come out unscathed from an injury standpoint. There were a couple of guys who did not play against Army in hopes that they would get that week off, plus the bye week, and then this week to get back to 100%. But you saw a couple of go down in that Army game, and I got to believe coming up at 12 noon, if not the first question, one of the first questions is going to be about the health of some of the Tigers.
No, absolutely. And I think the big one is going to be Zy Alexander, the cornerback who went down with an ankle injury, did not return to on the football field. And yeah, when you look at Alexander, he really did settle in at the cornerback position. In fact, Coach Kelly talked about in the press conference 2 weeks ago, Chris, they moved him to what we call the field corner, into the boundary corner where he was long. He could use his arms. They could play press coverage. They would roll him up and play cover two, and he was really playing at a high level. So the big question mark, who's going to play at that position? And then Mekhi Wingo has missed some football. Is he going to be available on Saturday night?
Again, we expect those to be covered with Coach Kelly. Is probable, doubtful. He's got his range to let us know, and I imagine that will come out pretty early on. But again, LSU took care of business. Now all time, the Tigers 1-1 with the Army Black Knights with a 62-0 victory. Was a great night, by the way. I thought LSU did a tremendous job in honoring the armed services and West Point, as well as all the pageantry you'd like. When you looked at the matchup on paper, wasn't going to be much. It wasn't much. But again, it was a great night to be out at Tiger Stadium. I think enjoyed by everybody.
Absolutely. What a great experience. I mean, all around the pageantry of playing Army. I think the opening of the football game, Governor Edwards out there at the coin toss rather, and then the folks flying in, the paratroopers. It was a special night.
Again, LSU now 6-2 on the season. They will jump back into conference play. They will take on 7-1 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. We'll take a timeout. We come back. We'll find out what Gordy thinks of this 2023 Alabama squad, and then hand you off to Coach Brian Kelly coming up at the top of the hour. It's the Brian Kelly press conference right here.
Swinging at Golf Suites, your number one destination for golf, food, and fun. Whether you are looking to enhance your game using state-of-the-art TrackMan technology or simply want to relax and enjoy an ice-cold beverage and delicious meal on our 6,000 square foot deck at Golf Suites, we guarantee a good time and even better company. And there's more. Whether it's a corporate outing, a birthday bash, or any group event, Golf Suites is your go-to venue for both small and large gatherings. Golf Suites. It's time to find your sweet spot.
At Albertsons, curbside pickup is easy, but delivery is even easier. Try our new Fresh Pass program and enjoy unlimited free delivery on all your grocery needs. We're offering even more perks like 5% off some of our best brands like O Organic and Open Nature. Plus, even more rewards that never expire to use on gas or free groceries. Start your free 30-day trial today when you sign up for Albertsons Fresh Pass and get free delivery anytime and exclusive perks. Visit albertsons.com/freshpass for program detail. Albertsons, fresh foods, local flavors.
If SEC football runs deep in your veins, then Sirius XM SEC Radio is what you need to listen to. We're talking conference and team previews, plus hear live games, news, and analysis from experts like Chris Doering, Aaron Murray, and Max Starks. Go in-depth with your favorite team with coaches shows, championship specials, and more. Get inside SEC football like nowhere else. Feed your fandom on the Sirius XM app. Stay up to date anywhere you go. Just download the app and start streaming.
Tiger fans, this is Eddie Kennison, former LSU football wide receiver. If you know me, you know I'm all about making big plays.
Tigers win! Tigers win!
That's why I joined the team at LSU Sports Properties. Our goal here is to help businesses make big plays both on and off the field. If you want to give your brand that competitive edge and be a part of the biggest stage in college sports, give the corporate sponsorship team at LSU Athletics a call. Your brand, our fans. Utilize the power of LSU Athletics to promote your business and sponsor LSU Athletics today. Call 225-578-2788. Go Tigers.
Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
Well, getting back into the swing of things after a week off, it's amazing what you forget, Gordy.
Yes.
You know, I mean, making sure you push all the right buttons and turn the right mics on. But nonetheless, we're getting you ready for Coach Brian Kelly, who will take to the podium at the Lawton Room, to the assembled media, talk about what the Tigers put in over the last several days in the bye week, as well as the rest and recovery, and what to expect in the matchup coming up on Saturday. So, Gordy, I think at certain times this season, both of these teams, from a national perspective, have been written off. Alabama early in the year, I think LSU a little later in the season. But as it turns out, here we go, headed in to the first weekend in November, and it is a national televised game in prime time between a one-loss Alabama team, a two-loss LSU team, and once again, implications for the SEC West, possibly the SEC, and who knows, the college football playoff will be battled for on Saturday night at 6:45 in Tuscaloosa.
There's tremendous parity in college football, and you know, I think there's a lot of football left, and a lot of top teams still may fall, and you're exactly right. I think whoever wins this football game really has a good path to Atlanta, with Ole Miss still to travel Georgia in 2 weeks. And just looking at their remaining schedule, you got to feel good about both LSU and Alabama, whoever wins this football game. Look, I think the storyline for Alabama this year has been that their struggles on offense, particularly at the quarterback position. Jalen Milroe was a guy last year that was able to come in and sub a little bit for Bryce Young. A tremendous athlete, but really was known for his ability to run. He struggled early in the season against Texas. They benched him against South Florida, and in the rain down there, they played in Tampa. It was an awful football game, but they won 17-3. And gradually, Tommy Rees, they've gotten better production out of Jalen Milroe. And I think the thing that's going to jump out at Tiger fans, if you haven't watched Alabama, Chris, is that the last 3 games, Jalen Milroe has gotten it done throwing the football. He hit not Jaden Daniels time, but in terms of like Jaden Daniels, not those sort of numbers, but he's been able to strike for big plays. And the number that jumps out at me, the last 3 rushing performances for Milroe, 12 yards against Texas A&M, negative 19 against Arkansas, and only 36 against Tennessee. I mean, you were figuring this guy was going to go for 100 a game when you saw him last year and he was quarterback. So he's evolved, and he's making some plays with his arm this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into this year, a lot of people felt like Alabama maybe didn't have that total elite wide receiver core, but they had a really good one, maybe one of their best in a couple of years. And whether or not they could get a quarterback, they could get the ball to them. And to your point, I mean, you look at those rushing numbers now, it's not as if Alabama and Coach Reese are relying on him running the football at all, which, again, we touched on in the last segment. LSU, the big concern coming in is the secondary. Number one, who's going to play? Right. Number two, how are they going to stack up against a very confident quarterback now with a pretty good group of receivers?
He's building confidence. Jermaine Burton's been fantastic. He's been their number one receiver, and they've got some good people out there with Prentice and company. And then you knew Alabama would get around to running the football, the 1-2 punch of McKellen and Roydell Williams. It's Alabama. They're going to have running backs. The offensive line has improved their play. This is not the 2019 Alabama Crimson Tide, but they are certainly made a lot of progress this season.
Well, it's one of those teams where I think you nailed it. It's probably not one of their more elite offenses, right, but this defense, don't sleep on it. And I know early in the season people felt like, well, Texas was able to, have their will against Alabama. Okay, well, that was week number 1. There's a lot of things that change. And it's hard to believe, and sometimes you really have to look at it this way. Teams do get better as the year goes along. We can talk to about LSU's improvements, but Alabama defensively, when I take a look at these two teams, I see LSU offensively atop basically every statistical category in the SEC, both overall and in conference games, which I should note is pretty impressive. Then you start to look at the defensive numbers, and you don't see Alabama at the top, but you see them in the top 3 and in the top 4. To me, I think that's the other storyline is how is Alabama going to defend, this LSU offense, which over the last several weeks, really outside of game number 1, has improved running the football, both with Jaden Daniels and Logan Diggs. You know what you have outside at the receiver position. What do you think Alabama wants to do, Gordy? Do you think they want to come in and go, okay, it sounds odd, but maybe we do want to force Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. to beat us. We're just not going to let you run it and have success on the ground. You think they take that approach?
I tell you, I don't think as a defensive coordinator you can go in trying to just do one thing. LSU's too good. Jaden has seen the field at a high level. I think they do a great job of getting to the line of scrimmage and audibling and getting themselves in the right play. And so to your point, I think the question is this, Chris. Alabama has probably the best secondary LSU is going to face this season. Do they feel like they can handle Neighbors and Thomas in man coverage when everybody else in the league has been running doubles at it?
Right.
And so are you going to try that? And certainly they're going to try that some. This is Kevin Steele, is now the defensive coordinator at Alabama. We all know Coach Steele was here with LSU for a short time. Fantastic defensive coordinator, and like everybody else in college football, not only a first-year coordinator, but also dealing with the transfer portal and people that have not been a part of your program for a number of years. So like the way Matt House is now tinkered with this defense, and he's got them to play at a higher level. The same thing has happened with Kevin Steele. And so you're going to have to do I think you're going to have to do a lot of different things. And the first and foremost, what you need to do is be able to do a better job of stopping the LSU rushing attack, which a lot of people struggle. And then for me, Chris, it's containing Daniels and keeping him in the box. A year ago, Jaden Daniels was able to run the football against Alabama, and Alabama defensively really, really struggled in accounting him in the run game. So for me, I think that's where it starts. You're going to be able to stop LSU's run game and account for Daniels without having to allocate extra people in there and leaving yourself in man coverage against these fantastic LSU receivers.
I think you can look at a number of statistics on paper, and again, that doesn't always play out when the lights are on and you get out on the field. But you look at some of those things you just touched on, and the difference makers in this game of inches sometimes becomes penalties and obviously turnovers. LSU's done a great job this year I think second in the SEC in turnover margin, one of the tops in turnover margin. Alabama has been loose with the football a little bit, certainly more so than we expect. And from a penalty standpoint, the last several games, LSU in conference, maybe those double-digit turnover or penalties, I should say. Coach Kelly, I still feel like believes that was an anomaly. He thinks his team is much more disciplined than that. Alabama also has had some really head-scratching penalties this year, which in this type of matchup in so many different ways where you could argue LSU has the strength or Alabama has the strength, I think, once again, those two categories will stand out and be magnified on Saturday.
Hey, it was one of the storylines last year. I'm trying to flip through and go back to the statistics. Alabama had over 100 yards in penalties last year here in Tiger Stadium. And, in fact, Eli Ricks had 3 huge interference calls that were a part of that football game. So definitely that's going to be something of it. And I think both teams are improving. Both teams are peaking at the right time. The second half in which Alabama scored 27 unanswered points on Tennessee to run away with that football game, I think is a sign that they're headed in the right direction. And we know LSU, since the second half of the Missouri game, has been playing some of their best football.
You mentioned your thoughts on how Alabama will try to defend LSU and again, not try to be too one-sided or take just one thing away. The flip side of that is, again, we talked about the weakened secondary as far as numbers and players that LSU has at their disposal. Hopefully, maybe we get some good news here in the next couple of minutes from Coach Kelly. But if not, your idea of how Matt House will go about trying to control Jalen Milroe, as we said, which hasn't been his running.
Right.
Does Alabama want to come and run the football against LSU, or do they want to try this secondary early and often in the game?
Well, obviously, LSU's weakness has been their secondary, although it's been improved. I think the key for Alabama, defending Alabama, is one, to stop run, and number two, it's containing Milroe and not going and missing him and allowing him to create and make big plays. I think there's some parallels between Milroe and KJ Jefferson. If you recall, the Arkansas quarterback, he didn't beat LSU often from the pocket. But when he was able to shake a tackle, he was able to create. They were able to get in a scramble drill, and that puts your defensive backfield in jeopardy, and they've got to cover more than 3 or 4 seconds. That's when big play happen. And you look at this Alabama team this season, they've hit on so many big plays, and I think that is the challenge for them. It's got to be some sort of smart, contained rushing when you go after Milroe.
How do you think Harold Perkins Jr. is utilized against Alabama? Is he a spy at times? Because, again, right. I think some of the things we've lost with Harold Perkins is his improvement in coverage, which, again, we knew was one of his weakest part of the games. But in this particular matchup against Milroe, who, as you said, is more dangerous when he extends a play to throw it than even to run, how do you handle Perkins? Do you mix that up a little bit, make him confused?
My percentage of snaps, if you would ask me this question at the beginning of the season, my percentage of snaps at Perkins at the spy would have been considerably higher. But he settled into this Sam nickel position. I think he's comfortable with that. He is much improved in pass drops. And then I like Spates. He's playing really well, and he's athletic as well. So I think you'll see some, but you're not going to quite see as much. And again, what's fun about this matchup is the open weeks, the bye weeks. So both coaches have now had 2 weeks to sit here and think about it. So you'll see some wrinkles that you haven't seen the last couple weeks out of LSU.
How big is this game for both programs, in your opinion, here in 2023?
Well, I think it's huge for both. I mean, for Coach Saban, obviously, he's disappointed what happened last year. There's not too many years left in Coach Saban. I'm going to get into the discussion when he's going to retire. And for him to get back to where Alabama's been, he's got to go win this game to go beat LSU, and he's got to go beat Georgia to get where he is. For LSU, I think, after the disappointing the two losses that LSU's had, it's a chance to get back on pace where you expect to be each year. So it's a huge game with LSU getting Florida and Texas A&M and Georgia State still here, all in Tiger Stadium. You win this, likelihood Georgia's going to be the favorite the following week. This is where you want to be if you're LSU.
All right, let's go to Coach Brian Kelly.
Games that put you in a position to challenge for an SEC championship. So we got to go on the road to Tuscaloosa. We've got to raise our level of preparation this week. It's not about rising up to the competition. It's rising to the level of preparation necessary to play an outstanding football team in all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. I think Coach Saban and his staff, Coach Reese, should be commended for what they've been able to accomplish offensively since early in the season, and obviously committed to Jalen. He's really done a nice job throwing the football. I think a lot of people were questioning his ability to throw it, but he's been effective, efficient, big plays. Certainly, Bond and Burton at the wide receiver position have given them playmakers. They're physical up front. I think they're massive on the offensive line. Williams and McClellan at the running back position. And, of course, their defense has been as good, if not better than anybody, consistently over the last 6 weeks, giving up 21 points or fewer. Turner and Downs and Arnold, there's a number of players. Their defensive line is stout and physical, outstanding in special teams. Shard is one of the best in the country. So, again, we know what we're up against. Outstanding football team on the road, playing at Alabama, and a great challenge and a great opportunity for us at the same time. So we'll practice today and get an opportunity to begin the preparation for an outstanding football team. So with that, we'll open up to questions.
Brian, right in the middle. What did you use last week for? What did you kind of drill down on? And was it a back to fundamentals thing, a rest thing? What did you?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think we talked about it last week. I think it was important for us to do some self-scouting, some things that we needed to work on. I think it was important that, from a technical standpoint, we continue to grow technically in some areas, on both sides of the ball. And then, you still want to meet a workload, criteria, because, you just can't continue to go through the season, then all of a sudden, put up a stop. So we got to about 70% of our average workload last week, and gave the guys some active rest over the weekend, and then they reported last night, and we're back to work today.
Hey, Brian, could you talk a little bit about your relationship with Tommy Reese? I know you try to get him to come here with you, but then also when you watch Alabama on film, you'd see things that look familiar when you two were at Notre Dame together.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a connection there. He played for me. We've got a deep connection relative to a player-coach relationship, and then a respect for him as a coach and what he's done in this profession at an early age. He's somebody that I have a lot of respect for in what he's done, certainly at Notre Dame, and then in a very short time taking an offense and transforming it quickly during the season. He's a competitor. He always was as a player, and you can see that as a coordinator. His teams are going to be physical. They're going to run the football. They're going to push the ball down the field, and they're going to, more than anything else, they're going to utilize their personnel as he'll mold the offense to fit the personnel. And I think that's what smart coaches do, and he's an outstanding football coach.
Hi. What can you say about the work ethic and the attitude of the players going into one of the toughest games of the season?
Well, they've exhibited a great work ethic. I think any program is built on a standard of work, and look, I mean, this game requires an incredible commitment, and so our players have been committed to that end, and certainly it takes more than just a work ethic. It takes a consistency week in and week out, and I like our mindset. Our team understands that it's more than just coming into work. It's working efficiently, purposely, and I think that they've done that over the past year and a half, where they've understood that it's not just about working; it's about working purposely.
Hey, Coach. Could you update the availability of Deuce, Denver, and Zai ahead of this weekend? And I guess Ashton Stamps, where he's at with his rehab of injury.
Deuce is not available. Denver's not available. Zai is not available. Ashton Stamps will practice today.
Coach, if you're in the same position that you are last year, will you go for 2 again?
The exact same position? Yeah, I mean, that's a feel of the game. So it's really hard to answer the question. I felt like the game itself was such that our guys were executing at such a high level that was kind of what prompted that decision. So I think from my perspective, it's really about a gut feeling at the time more so than what's the perfect scenario. And I think the feeling was that we were executing at a high level at that time. It was time to go for it.
Guys, right here. There's a lot of inexperience in the defensive backfield. What have you seen from them during the bye week coming into a big game like this?
Well, they've been around long enough now. I mean, I think you're into the season now, 8 games. They had some time here in camp and some. We had some mid-year enrollment. So, to say that they're inexperienced, yes, they haven't played a lot of SEC games, but they know what they're doing. They understand our techniques. They know what's expected of them. We're in a position where we feel comfortable and confident that they can go out and get the job done. Even though they don't have a lot of SEC games underneath their belt, they're quite capable of going out there and playing at a high level. So I'd say more than anything else, you have to have confidence in your players and their ability to do it. And I've got confidence that, whether it's Jeremiah Hughes or Javen Toviano, Ashton Stamps, all 3 of those freshmen can go out and play at the level necessary for us to win a championship.
Coach, is it harder these days and win at all costs and pressure to win to stick to your long-term vision of a program and the guys and the standard that you want to live up to, as opposed to the short-term gain of maybe playing somebody to help you win a game?
Well, it's never been a problem for me because I have a vision for our program, and the vision includes more than just winning. It includes developing excellence both on and off the field, and so we're certainly not there yet. We have to continue to grow relative to the identity of our football team. So I know I'm hired and fired on wins and losses, but I've never really worried about that. This is the 5th program I've taken over, and I've always built the program based upon excellence in the classroom and on the football field. And then that process has usually taken care of itself, and it's equaled success. So the question is a good question, but I don't think I've ever looked at it that way. And it helps when you have a 10-year contract, too. And so, again, that's not been my motivation in any way or shape, fashion. It's been much more about, developing a championship program in all of those facets, first and foremost.
Hey, Coach, you complimented the Alabama offense with the way that they've sort of adapted from the beginning of the year to now. What have you seen specifically with Jalen Milroe and the way that he's adjusted from the opener to now?
I think at first, there was this sense that he was just going to run all over the place, right? This is going to be a running quarterback, but he's not. I mean, he'll run and he can go from 0 to 60 as well as anybody. And he is a threat to run. There's no doubt about that. But he's going to stand in the pocket. He's going to throw the football. And the way they create offense is through a balance of running the football, formationing you so you can get some shots down the field. And he throws the ball well. I mean, he throws the ball well. And he can hit the open targets. He can push the ball down the field. And so I think what what he's done really well is when he's been given the opportunity to take shots down the field, he's hooked up. He hasn't missed receivers. When they've created the opportunities, he's come through for them, and I think that's been impressive.
Two, if I can. Your offense has clearly established what it's capable of. How much is this week about them not trying to be something they're not or trying to do something they're not because the game is obviously elevated? And then secondly, in the post-game video against Army, I think they gave you a game ball or something. You said something to the effect that, you're really enjoying your time here. This is maybe your most enjoyable time. I was just curious why. You alluded to the development of players. Is it because of kind of the development that you've seen this team from week one to kind of pull through?
Yeah, I think the offense clearly recognizes their ability to be explosive but have balance on offense and defense. So there's no reason for them not to be anything but who they are. And so I think that there's a confidence level that, if they prepare the right way, if they stick to their process, that they're going to have success. And so I think that's been their mindset, is just practice and put in the preparation the right way, and things will take care of themselves. What I was alluding to is essentially that this is a young group of players. We traveled 21 freshmen again this weekend. We had a slew of transfers come in on defense, and it was really a new group that we had to kind of on board, if you will, in the second season. And so just the development of the football team has been enjoyable. Watching the growth of the football team. They've done everything we've asked them to do. They have done the little things, and it's been hard. It's not been easy. There was a difficult loss to start the season. There was a very disappointing loss on the road, but they haven't backed down at all, and that's been enjoyable as a coach.
Coach, right here in the middle, are there any other injuries to report, particularly maybe Makai Wingo?
Yes, Makai had surgery. He is out for the season.
Out for the season.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would say this: the projections are 6 weeks, so we'll see where that where that goes.
Right. Okay. And so on the D line, who you're looking to fill that void, and how does his absence on the D line sort of affect that group?
Next man up. We'll rely on the rotation that you saw pretty much against Army. It'll be a similar rotation.
Coach, do you ever have time or an interest maybe in the off season to look at the history of the history of the rivalry, LSU Alabama, or a series, or jump into that kind of history at all? Even though it might not even be important.
No, Mike updates me. Mike is my local historian. He will, and as you know, he carries history very well because he's been here so damn long. He fills me in. How many years has it been? Since we played Alabama? No, that you've been here. 30. He's been here 30 years, so he is a resident historian. So, no, I think Mike does a great job of filling me in on a lot of the history of all of the games. And during the year, I learn about Mississippi State, the Auburn games, this Alabama game. And for me, it's exciting, right? Because I get immersed in some of the great games and the great rivalries and the great names that have been part of this game. So I love it. I think it's exciting. And for me, because I had been in the Midwest for most of my career, I catch just kind of the highlighted games. And so to get filled in on some of the other ones has been really fun.
I was wondering if ever, like after you finished the game at Notre Dame and got home, if you ever happened to catch any of an LSU Alabama game over the years.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, I love watching college football, so it certainly would have been a game that I would have watched. I remember some of those slugfests when it was 10-3, 10-7, some of those tight games. Great defense on both sides of the ball, fighting for every inch. Just some classic games, and really enjoyed watching them.
Coach, when Coach Saban speaks, he talks about the process and not outcomes, and I think you say a lot of the same things since you've gotten here. How much do you maybe see some similarities in terms of organization and your viewpoint on things, and do you observe other successful head coaches, read up on them, take notes to help yourself?
Yeah, I think most head coaches that have been in this business clearly understand that, the process of what you do and how you do it is probably, most important, to the day-to-day. And we've been in it a long time, both of us. And so we have developed what our process is individually through our years of experience, sometimes good and bad. So he has shaped what his process is and how that has been so effective for him. And likewise, I've shaped the process that I use on a day-to-day basis based upon my experience. So I think you'll find that in many ways, coaches, focus in on a process instead of outcomes because it's so important to develop that with your team.
Yeah, Brian, right here. With Nick, he's adapted to so many coordinators over the years, like every few years. How does a guy do that and just keep it consistent? Is that something that you kind of look at like, I don't know how he does that?
That's a great question. I think it's been remarkable because, you're bringing in, a different personality, a different person. He does such a great job of vetting that out and making sure that they fit. And clearly, what Nick talks about on a day-to-day basis, they have to obviously be in lockstep with him. And that just goes to the great leadership that he provides on a day-to-day basis. So you got one voice, and it's Coach Saban's voice, and everybody else is following in line with that. And so I think that's allowed multiple leadership positions underneath him to come in because he creates such a clear message of what is going to take place on a day-to-day basis.
Here in the middle. With Jaden Daniels, fair or unfair, I think a lot of people that are watching the Heisman hopefuls are going to look at this game in particular for him and see how he does. Do you, given all the football you've seen him play, and obviously, your very nuanced view of what he's done here, do you think that's fair, and is that something that, what's your expectation?
It'll be part of the body of work throughout the entire season. He's going to have other games. He's going to have the Florida game and Georgia State and Texas A&M and postseason, but it'll certainly be part of the body of work. If he throws 4 interceptions and, certainly we don't play well, that will be part of the body of work throughout the entire season. So, again, I don't know that it's one game that makes or breaks a Heisman. I think it's the body of work, and I think we're seeing that as the season, plays out. But certainly, he's going to be judged on the entire season, and there'll be a lot of eyes certainly on this particular game.
Hey, Coach, over here. So what's the status of Emory Jones from his injury, and what have you seen from his Lance Hurd, just to have that luxury of a guy that, as a freshman, that's played a whole lot of football and has done pretty well for y'all?
Yeah, Emory's practicing. We had him moving around last week, and he participated in our workouts. But he'll be a full go for practice today. Lance has done a great job of coming in and playing at a high level. It's great to have a true freshman that come in and compete at the level he did against Auburn and at Army. So he'll be ready and prepared if we do in fact call on him.
Just curious what you've seen in Alabama's defense. So much of the talk has been about the progress on offense.
Yeah, well coached, stingy. Kevin Steele and his staff do a great job. Again, as I said, I think that there's not a lot of air in that defense. You're going to have to be on top of things. We're going to have to be very balanced. You can't just want to throw it all over the place or think that you're going to go in there and move the line of scrimmage. They're big and physical up front. The linebacker play is outstanding. As I mentioned earlier, I think, Turner Baswell on the edge. They're long and athletic, and look, they're both 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds, and they create problems in the pass rush, and certainly, can run and hit. So it's a really good football team. It's, again, as I said, I think it's the best defense in all three phases. And look, it's the challenge that an offense like ours, really is up for, and will have to play their best. But that's what this is about, right? Is you want to be your best when your best is needed, and our offense will have to be at their best when their best is needed.
Just to confirm, Brian, Chestnut and Harris, any chance they could be eligible to play Saturday, or is
no, they're not playing.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of LSU fans following our tweets and watching live probably freaking out a little bit about the fact that you have all these defensive backs out, and now Wingo is out for the rest of the season. How do you deal with this? Obviously, you got a great offense going, and this is not your first big game, but it's a big game, and you're missing some key pieces on your defense going.
Yeah, clearly we'd love to have Wingo in the lineup, but he has an injury, and we're built for injuries. You can't be built for 11 players. We have depth. We have good players that will step up and be ready to play, and will play at a high level. So, again, it's part of football. In this game, if you lose one guy and you're not able to answer the bell, then you're not very good. We think we've got a good football team. We're going to miss them. But we have guys that will step up and compete at a high level.
And Daniel, you're right. Talking about next man up, Jordan Jefferson, but also some backups like Paris Shan, Braden Swinson have all played really well for you all this year. What are your thoughts on those guys coming off the bench?
Yeah, I think Jordan Jefferson's playing at a high level. It's graded out probably as our best defensive tackle. Physical at the point of attack, uses his hands well. It's getting great separation. Gap integrity has been outstanding. It's playing really well. Paris Shan, technically very, very good. Grading out at the top for our defensive line over the last 3 weeks. And Swinson's been really good in pass rush. So those three guys, as much as it hurts that, we don't have a few of the guys that we got in the portal at the defensive back position, those three guys, and having Omar back too, makes a difference. Having a veteran linebacker who knows the game really well, those four guys have made a significant difference for us.
Hey, Coach, just to clarify, with Zah, he's unavailable for the Alabama game specifically, not just for, today.
He's unavailable for the Alabama game, and as I said, he could be out for a significant period of time.
Okay.
Yes.
And with your secondary, with your younger corners, how do you sort of prepare for a guy like Milroe who can really chuck the ball downfield? What kind of emphasis is it on trying to stop those big plays downfield?
Yeah, look, as I said, these kids, they're elite players coming out of high school. I mean, they're elite players. And now you're putting them in a position where they just have to be confident and trust their technique and trust what we've taught them. And so now it's taking that trust and putting it in from preparation to performance and playing emotionally at a level which allows them to do their job. And I think we've been at it long enough now where these guys are ready to go. They got no choice unless you're ready to go. I'm not sure. We could have a matchup problem. But these guys are ready to play. And look, they're young. Many have said inexperienced. I get it. They haven't played a lot of SEC games. But these guys are really good players. And they'll get out there and they'll compete. They'll compete for LSU.
You mentioned Omar. Just what kind of settling factor has he been since he's come back?
Well, he's, again, we had Witt in there, and everybody loves Witt, and I love Witt too. He's athletic, he's fast, he runs around. He really is going to be an outstanding football player for us. Omar brings a settling influence out there with Greg Penn. You've got two veteran players that have seen it, done it, have played a lot of snaps. And as much as we talk about the back end of the defense that don't have a lot of snaps, it's nice to be able to come back and have, two veteran linebackers in there communicating to the back end with two safeties that have played a lot of football. So we're really, looking at the veteran presence that he brings, and it's an added advantage for us in terms of having him on the field. Great. Thank you.
That'll wrap up this week's Brian Kelly press conference presented by Capital One. We'll close things up right after this break.
Score big with healthcare decisions this enrollment period. With a Medicare Advantage plan from People's Health, you get more benefits than original Medicare for no monthly premium. Benefits like $0 copays for primary care and virtual doctor visits. Part D prescription drug coverage including $0 Tier 1 and Tier 2 generic drugs. A quarterly allowance for over-the-counter items. Plus coverage for hearing aids, dental services, and glasses or contacts. Call People's Health to learn more. 1-855-633-4207.
Unrivaled content, unprecedented access. LSU Gold, powered by Bayou Traditions, is the only place for exclusive behind-the-scenes content featuring your favorite LSU teams. It's all access to the Tigers, all year long, from pregame warm-ups to postgame celebrations and every moment in between. You can watch LSU Gold anywhere, anytime, and on your favorite device. Go to lsu.gold today to sign up for your free 7-day trial, so you can be there for each step of LSU's championship journeys. That's lsu.gold.
If SEC football runs deep in your veins, then Sirius XM SEC Radio is what you need to listen to. We're talking conference and team previews, plus hear live games, news, and analysis from experts like Chris Doering, Aaron Murray, and Max Starks. Go in-depth with your favorite team with coaches shows, championship specials, and more. Get inside SEC football like nowhere else. Feed your fandom on the Sirius XM app. Stay up to date anywhere you go. Just download the app and start streaming.
Hey, Tiger fans 12 and younger, don't miss your chance to be a part of Mike's Kids Club, presented by Shell, the exclusive kids club of LSU Athletics. Join Mike's Kids Club for only $25. Get the official Mike's Kids Club t-shirt, free admission to select LSU athletic events, and much, much more. To learn about upcoming events and to join, please visit lsumkc.com. The Mike's Kids Club, presented by Shell.
This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.
Well, that'll wrap things up today for the Brian Kelly Press Conference. Unfortunately, not the injury update anybody was looking for. In fact, now expected to be without Mekhi Wingo for the foreseeable future. Again, there was one bright spot. Ashton Stamps expected, the freshman cornerback, to practice today. Stamps with 6 games of action this year. Last time out against Missouri. Coming up on Thursday, it's the Brian Kelly Show, making its return to TJ Ribbs beginning at 7 o'clock. Love to have you there. Hear Coach talk about the matchup this coming Saturday. If you can't make it to TJ Ribbs, you can tune in on the LSU Sports Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the LSU Sports mobile app presented by BASF. Then coming up on Saturday, we get things started at 4:30 with LSU Game Day presented by 3 Olives. Hunt Palmer, Marlon Favorite, Brandon Taylor, they'll set the table for LSU and Alabama inside Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. As Gordy Rush, Doug Morrow will join me for the call of the game with kickoff just after 6:45. Thanks to Gordy Rush sitting in once again today. Thank you for stopping by. Be back here next week for the Brian Kelly Press Conference. Until this Saturday from Tuscaloosa, this is Chris Blair saying so long, everybody, and go Tigers!
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, presented by Capital One.